Christian McCaffrey. Finally, Kyle Shanahan answered questions about him, why he's playing so much. And he said, we don't really rotate players. We got an entrenched starter. He's freaking good, just a little rusty. But and he said a bunch of stuff that contradicted himself. But at least he used words, English language. It was incredible. What do you think of Kyle Shanahan finally defending his decision to I don't even know what he's doing. Coach, go ahead.
I want to take this first. Number one, he just didn't make sense. He was talking out of both sides of his mouth. The first thing that he does is he says that most teams have a starting back rotation and the starter usually plays. Most teams don't do that. That's a lie. All right. It's flat out. My man, Detroit has a dual back system. The Bucks have a dual back system. Come on, bro. The Packers have a 3-back system. We saw 3-backs get off on us.
And Jahmyr Gibbs is better than any back the Niners have, and they don't overuse him, just for the record.
Bro, Kenny Walker III and Zach Charbonnet. The Seahawks have a dual back system. What are we doing here? So that right there was rich. So that's one. Two, he says that we didn't get a lot of opportunities to run the ball this week coming up. So, that's why we just didn't get him in there because, we just didn't run the ball enough. Who is the offensive coordinator? You ran the ball 14 times. You are the change that you seek, sir. You can fix this. I don't understand why you're sitting here trying to act like you actually have an offensive coordinator or he was talking from a position of my hands are tied. There was nothing we could do. You could have done something. That's another thing.
2019 wasn't that long ago. I remember the Tevin Coleman, Raheem Mostert, Matt Breida time. I remember that. What are you talking about?
Yes. Bro,
Mostert never started that year.
That the number one thing that we all learned about, this is pre-CMC, right? Before CMC got here, we were a running back by committee team. We all understood that whoever was coming out that week, Kyle would give everybody about 4 to 5 carries apiece. Whoever got the hot hand, whoever found cohesiveness with the offensive line, it was their day. And that's who we rolled with that day. And there was no ego. We also gave Kyle credit for doing things like finding Jeff Wilson Jr. and applicating him into the offense later in the season when we were wondering why he wasn't playing before, when we had Mostert, Breida, and Coleman. So Kyle has done this many times before. Now, if you want to admit that wasn't all you, we can have that conversation. But what I'm saying is that what he was saying at the moment just didn't line up. And then he closes with this. Well, we want to keep Christian on the field as much as possible, and that the more carries that Christian gets, the stronger he gets and the more comfortable he gets. That right there is malfeasance. It kind of points out to me that you don't even know how to use Christian. So all of this time that you were spamming him last year, there was no intelligent design. He was just healthy enough to supplant all of the crap calls that you were giving him time in and time out, when last year we still should have been seeing Jordan Mason last year. So even this year, we see him running a square peg into a round hole, pushing Christian into inside runs where he doesn't deserve to be in there, seeing Christian be a shell of himself on trying to basically be athletic from getting a check down. How many routes are we going to see that are going to be sawed off before first down markers where Kyle designs something, but he relies on the player to do the rest? We don't have those players anymore. The answer that Kyle gave about Christian was he was not prepared. He was talking in circles. And lastly, I will close with this. Kyle likes to dip in between him being an offensive coordinator and a head coach when he answers questions. And the trajectory of the least road traveled and the least path of resistance is the avenue he takes. He answered that question like an offensive coordinator instead of a head coach. Larry was asking him about the responsibility of playing Jordan Mason, not the technical stuff. So I just thought that it was BS.
Yeah, when he dips, you dip, we all dip, and it's crazy. Jessie.
I think my biggest issue was the contradiction about saying that nobody should think CMC was just going to come back and be the offensive player of the year. That's where my ears perked up, because he talked about, and very smartly, by the way, talked about, he didn't have an off season, and when players don't have an off season, we can see it takes them a while to get to adapt to things. But then you add on the fact that he didn't play the first half of the season, it's really going to take him a while to get up to football speed. So, I think anybody thinking he should just come out the gates and be an offensive player of the year is really unfair to him. Kyle, you're the only one that thought that. You're the one that played him every single snap out the gate, pretty much. We didn't think that. We've been saying, hey, let's give it a 50% share, 50% to him, 30% to Mason, 20% to Garendo. Everybody had it split up different, but I don't think anybody was higher than like 60% on CMC out the gates because we wanted him to ease in. Nobody expected that. But Kyle, you're playing him as if he is that. And you're defending playing him as if he is that. It's almost like he gets up there and he's talking to himself. Like, you're the critic. You're the one that's actually making things happen, Kyle. We don't want that. We want Mason to play. Mason is clearly the younger player. Believe it or not, he's the fresher player, even though he's played this season, because his body hasn't taken the carries over the years that CMC has taken through college and what have you. He's the harder running player. He's the tougher to tackle. There's no reason not to play Jordan Mason. The only reason he's not playing is because of Kyle's decision. But yeah, Kyle, you're right. We shouldn't consider him as the offensive player of the year. That would be a crazy thing to do, right? He's talking to himself.
I think Jessie and the coach answered it really well. The two things that stood out to me, though, that weren't mentioned, like the first thing was his answer said, we're not a 3-man running back rotation team. That's the question, Kyle. The question is, why aren't you, right? Like, he answered the question just by repeating the question. Like, so that stood out to me. I didn't understand that. And then the other thing,
which we don't make the rules. I just think them up and write them down. That's all. I don't understand.
And then Christian McCaffrey, when he was interviewed after the fact, was like, yeah, that's a narrative. Kyle started that narrative, Christian. Kyle is the one that told us that you refuse to come off the field. So it's if there's a narrative created around that, was created by Kyle Shanahan. So thought that was interesting.
I think people forget they don't forget, but they underestimate how stubborn Kyle Shanahan is. And he says he doesn't listen to the outside noise. Yes, he does. He's acutely aware of what people are saying he should do. And for 3 years, not just for 6 months, not just for the last 3 weeks, but for 3 years, people have said, play Jordan Mason. What are you doing? He's one of your better players and you're just not using him. He could make things better. Why don't you share time? You're overusing Christian McCaffrey, and he resisted for years. And if in his mind, I think, if he were to all of a sudden capitulate to all the pressure and finally split up the carries, it would be an admission that he was wrong and everyone else was right. And someone with a really secure self-esteem, ego could be okay with that. I don't have to be right every time. I want to win. But he has to be right. And so Jordan Mason doesn't get to play. And he's going to play Christian McCaffrey if he's averaging 2 yards a carry and just give a word salad explanation as to why. The thing that really kills me about this, though, is what about Garendo? You traded up for him. You didn't want Jordan Mason, whatever, undrafted free agent. He's proven you wrong. He's making you look you don't know what you're talking about. But Garendo's your guy. You traded up for him to do what? To not play at all? He's averaging 6 yards a carry. He's much better at running back than he is as a kick returner. Explain that one. You didn't just wait for him to come to you you freaking traded up for this guy. And you don't want and now you tell us that you don't rotate running backs? Then why is he here? Trade him. Get rid of him. You're not going to use him. And trade Jordan Mason too. It's a shame what they're doing to those guys. I mean, forget Garendo will get an opportunity maybe, but like Jordan Mason's in a contract year and this is what you do to him? What?
Is it really all about the money? Is he that stubborn that he doesn't want to show that the money and what they gave Christian? Like, could it really be that? Is he that small? Like, I'm sorry for asking it that way, but like, it can't be that simple that we see glaring. They need to have a dual backfield, and it can't be because you don't want to prove that you were wrong. You don't want to show that you were wrong with the money that you gave Christian.
That's as small as it gets.
And what's crazy about what's crazy about that, if it is true, because we're speculating, but if it is true, that's not even fair to Christian. Like, you're not even helping him. You know, like, I know that we're looking at it from the Isaac Garindo and the Jordan Mason side of like, yo, play them, help the team. But how are you prolonging Christian's career by using him like this? You're not helping him. So
And you're hurting his confidence.
Yeah. Like, what you said about Christian, I took you at your word. He's affected by this. And it's like, you're killing his confidence by not finding the best way to use him, all because he's the, like, and you know what's crazy? It is true, because he started that entire answer off with, well, Christian's the starter. And, you know, we have a starting running back system here, and most teams don't do that. Off the bat right there, it's deflection and like, come on, bro, that's not true.